Now it's time for Inspirational Women, and my guest, Arndrea Waters King, a passionate and compassionate leader whose heart is focused on creating the beloved community. And one way to engage us with this is her book, What is My Legacy? Realizing a New Dream of Connection, Love, and Fulfillment, that has been written in conjunction with her husband, Martin Luther King III, Marc Keilburger, and Craig Keilburger. Arndrea Waters King, good morning, and I am so grateful that you are able to join us this morning.
Good morning. I am so happy to be here with you today.
And what a story, what a memory, and years of inspiration we have to reflect on and to share this morning. And you have, which is wonderful, this new book, What is My Legacy? A collaboration between yourself and your husband and two Canadian entrepreneurs. I have a little Canadian connection, so that's kind of great that you have that connection here as well. So they together you have written this really important, amazing book, What is My Legacy? Legacy is so critical in our life for each of us. So to have this really focused here, I feel is so amazing, and based on the life of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, really again brings that all to such great focus. Now, so I've said too much, or I've said a lot. So I turn it to you. Is that touching on it? This is to be commemorating the great work that he started in our world.
It is, and it also is a challenge for each of us to find our place in continuing that work. So it is not just a historical look at, or even merely a biographical look as it relates to my husband. It is really a challenge to each and every one of us to, number one, redefine legacy. And then most importantly, to find ourselves by our own passions and our power and our stories within the King legacy, but also to find a way collectively to build that beloved community that Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King talked about. It also is about reconnecting. We have a 16-year-old daughter, and I don't know of anyone that has gone through these last 4 years in particular that has not felt touched in some way by chaos. And what we're seeing less and less of is community. And we felt that it was important for us as parents and just as humanitarians to really look at where we are as a nation and a world, but it starts with us, and we talk about this in the book, the fact that there is almost this perma crisis, if you will, where we're going from crisis to crisis, chaos to chaos. And what that is leaving a lot of us with is a disconnection from ourselves, our community. And this is a way we hope and feel to reconnect with all of those aspects.
That is it. Amazing how you encapsulated it so succinctly, but really captures, yes, where we are. And to that, I think back because I actually do remember the time I was living in Canada, so it was a little different in a way, but I do remember that April morning hearing the news that Dr. King had been shot, had died, and just in that being really shifting the foundations, shifting the earth. But it really still took almost maybe 2 decades for me to look back and realize that when I was 40 and reading about him, realized what he had accomplished at age 40, who he was, what he was doing. I thought, oh my gosh, he was leading this movement. He was making a difference in the world. What am I doing with my life? Well, it was certainly a good question. I don't know that things really accelerated at that point, but I can I think right now it's there is this regret, like how have we not accomplished more? How have we not continued the work and grown to be a better country, a better world because of his work and who he was, and the seeds he was planting? So here we are regenerating it, right, Arndrea?
Yes, in a very real sense. And again, that's why we felt so compelled to write this book. The book actually starts with the day that my father-in-law was assassinated, and my husband tells the story through his eyes and voice that has never been heard. And everyone that reads the book, and particularly that part of the book, is touched by it in a way even that is, I wouldn't say, well, maybe surprising even to us. But again, the overall story is, the very last sermon that Martin Luther King Jr. ever delivered in Atlanta at his home church of Ebenezer Baptist Church was entitled The Drum Major Sermon. And in that sermon, he talked about how he wanted to be remembered. And he talked about the fact that, it wasn't important to him to recall that he was a PhD, or even that he had a Nobel Peace Prize. And he talked about that, that there's this instinct that a lot of us want to be out front, just being a drum major. But what was important to him is that he wanted to be remembered as someone who did try to feed the hungry, to clothe those without clothes, to leave the world a better place in which he found it, to leave a committed life behind. And when he was assassinated 2 months later, that was the sermon that Coretta Scott King chose to play at his funeral. And so, in a very real sense, he eulogized himself with that. And we feel in our family that that call is our pursuit, but it's a pursuit, again, for all of us. And that is the challenge that I think none of us are in control of the length of our life. I'm sure all of us wish we were. And there are things obviously that we can do as far as we try, but even that, none of us are in control of that. What we are in control of is the depth of our life. How deep, how many have we touched? What do we leave in our wake? But also, what do we leave in our wake, not only after our death, but in our wake every single day? And also the height. How are we continuing to reach up to something larger and greater than ourselves? And that's what this book is about. And that's the challenge to all of us. He had 39 years. I'm sure that he would have wanted longer for his children and even for his grandchildren. Our daughter at 16, she didn't get the opportunity to sit on her grandfather's lap, nor was he there for Grandparents' Day. So, but what we do have, and what all of us have, is a legacy of commitment and a legacy of love. And ultimately, with that, that's how we not only pave the way to the beloved community that he talked about, but that's how we find fulfillment. I think so many of us are searching in so many places, particularly young people, but all of us, for that fulfillment. And in the book, we talk about that, seeking fulfillment, and how through living your legacy, how reconnecting to love. And when we're talking about love, we're not talking about just the romantic love or the sentimental love, although that's wonderful and beautiful. But we're talking about that love that reminds each and every one of us of our shared humanity. We're talking about the love that connects us all as sisters and brothers. And so it's more of a awareness rather than a sentimentality. And when we're doing something for that legacy and remembering that love and that connection, that's how we will find ultimately the fulfillment.
Yes, absolutely. And it sounds great. And then we flounder thinking, well, what will I do exactly? And you have already collaborated for an answer, which has already, the ball has started to roll, so to speak, in having realized the dream, which is such a great way for us to wake up to this and not only really reach the goal that is set there, but in the process, I think we're going to grow and find ourselves to be new persons.
That's the hope. Realize the dream we started working on actually about 3 years ago, in the midst of the pandemic. As parents, we noticed more and more division that was going on. And if we, the division that we were concerned about 3 years ago, it seems that, and unfortunately, thus far, it has not diminished, but it has grown even wider. And so we were considering, what is it that we can do to really remind each and every one of us that there's so much more that connects us than divides us, to remind us, how can we all come together, stand together, and unify and uplift one another? And how can we, in a tangible way, invite everybody into the realization of the dream and the building of the beloved community, which is what was the outcome of Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King's work. And through that, we talked and thought about and came up with the idea of coming together, having people all across America come together, stand together, serve together. And by the 100th birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., which is in 2029, to have completed collectively and together 100 million hours of service. And we're calling that initiative Realize the Dream, because what we know and believe is that once that is completed, we certainly will be on the road to being closer to realizing the dream. But here's the wonderful thing: those who serve, number one, we're not telling people how to serve. And so, because we know that it's in the power of kind of finding your own passions, and there's an infinite ways to be of service. And also, we understand that, all too often in the past, service has almost been, only something that, in some ways, it's been difficult sometimes to do, unless you're, of a certain economic stature. If you're a single mom, or if, and you're working two jobs, or if your mom is working two jobs and without a car, just to get to the ride the bus, or two buses to the food kitchen to volunteer. So what we also are saying is that everybody has a role and a part in realizing the dream. So maybe you can't get to a soup kitchen, but hey, is there a child that you notice that there's a working mom that maybe needs just some help, an hour a week or 2 hours a week babysitting, or 2 hours a week, tutoring, like, or keeping, the neighbor's dog, down the road, for an hour. What is it that we all can do to serve each other? And as we're doing that, as we're serving each other, particularly for young people, they get to be a part of creating the world in which they want to see, in a world in which they believe in. And it is also the physical act of acknowledging our shared humanity.
And that, in this way, it is so beautiful because we look in our own community. There isn't, as you said, set things to do. There's a way to, on the website, to.
But I was going to say, but for those
Oh,
that, and also,
yes.
but for those that are more interested in set ways to do, we have partnered with some tremendous partners. And so you also can go on the website if you would prefer, and find service opportunities in your area. You put in your zip code, and there's a list that populates for you as well.
Yes. So it really makes it in that way simple for anyone. And that's where legacy comes in, because it doesn't say this is how you fit into it. We look within ourselves and find where those places are that need to be served, and create that or find that. And and it was great to just hear you giving examples of that child down the street that maybe needs care or tutoring. I think about how people of varying ages might see a neighbor who needs some assistance moving their trash can to the edge of the road. Those sorts of things, connecting within our neighborhoods, connecting to people and seeing them as people.
Exactly. And do that and go on the website and log your hours. Write cards to kids that are maybe in cancer treatment, or there may be clothes that you have outgrown or your children have outgrown, and maybe you can do a coat drive or shoe drive, and give it to neighbors that could or would appreciate it. And I don't want to, because what I am so inspired by are people that are coming up with creative ideas that I could have never in a million years thought of. And that is the beauty of who we are. That is the beauty of humanity, and is that we are, when you look at what's going on even in California at this time, as it is heartbreaking, the stories that are coming out, and there's also stories of neighbors helping neighbors, and so the beauty of service, and what was very important to us is that we're not telling people how to serve. We certainly would give examples, inspiration, but again, we think the beauty comes from community, and people will come up with, coming up every day with creative and innovative things that we couldn't have begun to have thought of. And when you think about even the word community, because Dr. King's last book is Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? And I like to remind people that you can't spell community without unity. And this brings back the idea and the concept of unity, that we are indeed all in this together.
Yes. And the only way to really succeed is to do it together. Yes. With the unity. Otherwise, it's the chaos.
It's chaos, exactly. Yeah. It's chaos. It's more division. And again, what I love about this book and so excited to put into the world is, yes, we're talking about legacy and of course realize the dream and legacy as it relates to community, but also, again, this book is also about reconnecting with yourself. It's about the fact that, again, all of it really starts with that within yourself. And for those people who, you can read the book and decide totally not to serve, and you will get so much out of the book, and that's wonderful and that's great. And so, because again, even then you're still living out your legacy, and again, but what we're talking about is a legacy that's not merely about being able to leave your name on a building or on a park bench, although those are great, but living again every single day in intention and purpose and finding your fulfillment. And to that end, we have over 20 authors, or well, not authors, contributors, that have, they have essays, and it's so wonderful to see different people's version of living out their legacies. So there's an essay from, first of all, there is a foreword by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and there are essays by everyone from Julia Roberts to Melinda French Gates to Sanjay Gupta to Simon Sinek, to Yara Shadidi to Michael Bernard Beckwith to Reverend Al Sharpton, and more and more and more and more. So because again, there is no one way to live out your legacy. However, we're saying that to do it again with love and intention, and then you will feel the connection and ultimately fulfillment.
Yes. I'm going to touch on the essay that Julia Roberts wrote, because I think most of us will recognize her name. And as I read it, I thought, I have read this somewhere else before, where she was actually delivered in the hospital, right? Where in it was it in Atlanta? You can tell the story better.
It was.
Mm.
She was, and her parents had a drama school and acting school here that Martin, my husband Martin, and his older sister Yolanda um, attended. So they were, friends of the family. And when Julia's parents were pregnant with Julia, they were in a very tough financial bind and position and could not afford the medical bills. And so the medical bills for her being born in the hospital were paid for by Martin's parents.
That
And
was
so, yeah, Martin and Coretta King paid the hospital bills and the medical bills for Julia Roberts to be born. Again, that show like legacy. They
yes.
they weren't doing it because Julia Roberts was going to be this, huge famous superstar, nor is she telling the story because of that. But again, it's looking and seeing how we can help each other. And sometimes it's not, it's those are stories and they're countless. Um, of Martin and Coretta King and so many others that people don't know. You kind of think you know everything about them, but again, our legacies also are not just merely the leaving, having streets and parks and what have you, or leaving your name on a building. Although those are wonderful tributes, but it's the how you live every day, and how you're living out your life, and that is an example of that.
And that is actually what I was thinking of then with her experiences. What she gained from her parents was who they were as people. They did work in their community, but they did work that made other people really gain something from it that they wanted to give back. So she gained so much from that kind of example and that kind of foundation. So it wasn't money that brought it, but she remembers this and carries it on. And that's for us too, to realize that where we are, we do what we can. And because it's truly honestly our purpose, we've really connected with that.
Exactly. And it also shows that how we are all in this connect together, and we're all connected. When you think about the fact that her parents in the 60s in in Georgia had a drama school and class where they were welcoming everyone. They
Mhm.
were
Yes.
welcoming Black and white students when that was not necessarily what was the norm then. And how, so again, how, but that's what they felt was right, and just. And then look at the ramifications from that. It informed who their daughter grew up to be, but it also then informed, literally having being helped when they needed it most,
Yes. Yes.
without any strings attached.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
Coretta Scott King never went around and said, guess what? I paid for Julia. That wasn't, that's also about when you're living your legacy, you don't have to do that.
Right.
You do it because it's right. And at some point it'll come out, and come out as a way to inspire. It's a story to inspire
Yes.
us and inspire others.
Exactly. Yes. And can we mention your daughter, who I feel is just already beginning to take the world by storm? I mean, she really is embracing walking in and with her legacy.
We are very blessed. Our daughter is a tremendous force of nature already and a ray of sunshine. But as we're talking about legacy, I think it's important for us, or I can share with you what we've told our daughter since she was truly an infant. So certainly before she could literally understand this, and I think she understands it now, but I would imagine the older she gets, the more she would understand it. And one of the things that we've always said to her is that, Yolanda, being Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King's granddaughter, is a beautiful and wonderful and a unique thing. And it's something to be celebrated. But everyone has something unique about them. For some, it might be a particular look or eye color, or for some, it might be a particular talent. So each and every person has something unique about them, and that's wonderful. That's not what makes you special. However, what makes you special is who you are as a child of God. And that very same thing is what makes everyone special and who you come in contact with. And I think ultimately that is one of the, or even maybe the main theme of this book is finding what makes us unique and remembering that there's something about each and every one of us that makes us unique, including ourselves. I think we forget sometimes that we're like, we can say, hey, yes, that is something that's unique about me, and that's wonderful. But then also to remember that what makes us special is the same thing that makes each and every one of us special, which is who we are as a child of God, however you define God, who we are as a part of humanity. And as we're thinking about that, just remember that that's the same thing that makes each and every person you come in contact with. And that we are all interdependent and interrelated in mysterious and powerful and beautiful ways, which we still truly don't understand exactly how. But, we don't see the wind, but it's there. So we are, as humanity, truly linked to each other. So this book and this project is our love letter and thank you to Martin Luther King Jr. And it also is our challenge to each and every one of us to remember those two things: what's unique about us and everyone else, and what's special about us and everyone else.
And to share it with the world.
And to absolutely share it with
Don't
the world.
hide that light under a bushel basket.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yep.
Because the world does need each and every one of us. We have that place, that part to play, that maybe there are those with those dollars that can make some difference, but it takes humanity, it takes our beingness to be present, to walk in these places and touch people and see eye to eye with people, embrace each other. That's what,
Absolutely.
yes.
1,000%. And the great thing is that, number one, and that is how we create the beloved community. That is how we really create it. And we can do that. It's not this unrealistic dream. I think, if anything, it's a mandate that we do so. Also, when you're serving, it's very interesting because not only does it help the person or the community that you're serving, but it helps you, of course, as the server, because it goes back to us being interlinked in ways which we truly don't understand. But also, when you witness an act of kindness or service, there is now neuroscience to show that there's a dopamine rush just by witnessing the act. So can you imagine the healing power and potential of us for ourselves, for our neighbors, and for the world?
Yes. And in doing so, realize the dream.
And then we absolutely will be on the road to realizing the dream. When you know that you're serving as a way to make real the dream of Martin Luther King Jr., you are at that coat drive because you understand that you're a critical part of realizing the dream. You're at the soup kitchen because you know that you're doing that to realize the dream of Martin Luther King Jr. You are working at, helping stray animals, and you're doing that with the intention, a spirit of doing your part in realizing the dream of Martin Luther King Jr. This is why we're doing this.
Oh, well, here's the invitation to all of us to be part of the team, part of the beloved community to accomplish it.
Realize the dream.
Realize that. And it's simple. It's that website.org.
That's right. RealizeTheDream.org. You'll find a wealth of information and ways to get involved there. And of course, the book is What is My Legacy? And we are, again, so very honored and excited about offering this to everyone.
It is a beautiful book and just filled with really great inspiration. We'll be bringing back memories for some of us, will be new information for others, but definitely then just a wealth of important stories. And this morning has been a wonderful connection in time of story with you, Arndrea Waters King. I really
Very
do.
good. Yes.
I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing of yourself.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening.
Oh, this was great. That brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Arndrea Waters King and Sunday Morning Magazine with Dr. Ivan Meisner. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or to share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the Listen tab, then Podcasts, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of sincere focus on legacy, on what this means in our life. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.